The Nissan Juke is a practicality-focused compact SUV with a very small price tag, and it has some really great attributes and some things that will probably really annoy you. Stay tuned, I'm going to tell you all about it in this review. By the way, my name's Matt, this channel's called The Right Car, and I'm going to help you find out if the Nissan Juke is the right car for your needs. Let's get to it. The Nissan Juke has been around for a few years now, but it still looks as fresh as it ever did from the outside. On the inside, well, maybe it's showing its age. I'll show you that shortly. But let's talk about the model range. Now, there are 5 different versions of this car available, which seems like a lot for a little SUV like this, and it is a lot, but let's just talk about pricing. So the entry-level version starts at under $30,000 before on-road costs, and the top one is around 37 grand before on-road. So add a few grand and you'll get an idea of what you will be paying, or just go to the Nissan website and you'll be able to check it out for yourself, what the prices are for drive-away pricing in your location. Now, I'm not going to cover off all of the different variants in full detail. I'm just going to talk about this one here, which I think is actually the pick of the range. It's the STL, so it's the mid-spec model, just over $34,000 before on-road costs as it sits right here, and it comes with some really good features. I love these 19-inch alloy wheels. I think they're one of the best looking wheel designs on the market right now, and you also get, just like the lower grade models, full LED lighting on the outside. So you've got LED headlights, LED daytime running lights, and also LED tail lights. On the inside, just like the lower grade models, you get an 8-inch touchscreen media system with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and you also get sat-nav in this grade with live traffic updates as well. Now, this grade also scores a 7-inch part digital instrument cluster, and it also gets leather accented and PVC trimmed seats. Yep, Nissan even calls it PVC. It's just a fake leather plasticky seat trim, but at least it looks pretty convincing. You get a leather lined steering wheel as well, single zone climate control, heated front seats, and yeah, it starts to stack up from a value perspective when you consider all the good stuff that you are getting in this grade. And if you want even more, if you want proper leather seat trim, you have to shop up a little bit higher. But even in the lower grade models, there's pretty good value for money here and pretty good safety technology. I'll cover all that off later on, but first, let's talk about some of the best alternatives to the Nissan Juke. So you want a compact SUV with lots of technology and a low price tag. Look, you don't have to be buying a Chery Motor 5 or a Haval Jolion. I've done reviews of both of those cars. You'll find links in the description if you want to check those reviews out. But I reckon there are better options out there than those models, including the Volkswagen T-Cross. Yeah, it's about to be updated for 2025 by the time it gets here. So there's still another year or so of the model that you'll see on your screen now to run. It's still very good. It's got a great little 1-litre turbocharged engine, and it's also got some serious practicality benefits because it's got a sliding second row seat. So that means you can make it more spacious for your passengers or more roomy in the boot if you need it to be. It's really good. And there's another model that it's very similar to. It's called the Skoda Kamiq. I've done a review of it as well. You can hit the link at the top of the screen to check it out. Now, that car is also available with that 1-litre engine, but it's also got a 4-cylinder if you do want that. And it's got some really nice interior design too. It's got a big boot for the size of the car and some really rich features, including a 7-year warranty as well. So that could be a really good choice for you. And then there's another small but smart option for you to choose from. It's the Ford Puma. Hit the link up there and you'll be able to check out my review of it. I reckon it is a fun little car. If fun is what matters to you, then you should buy a Ford Puma because, well, it falls short in a few other ways, but it is very fun to drive. So tell me which one you would pick. If you would pick any of those, let me know in the comments section below. The Nissan Juke is teeny weeny. It's just 4.2 meters long, but it's almost like the designers at Nissan were told to basically put as much styling as they would put onto a large SUV on a small one. Look, I like the look of it. I reckon it stands out from the crowd and it does have some really beautiful elements. I reckon it's got one of the best alloy wheel ranges on the market. These 19s, gorgeous. Now, one thing that isn't fantastic for younger people is the door handles. They're up here. So that means that if your youngster can't quite reach, you're going to have to always be letting them in, which could get annoying. Now, one thing that's not annoying is the amount of boot space in this car. Let me show you. The boot space in the Nissan Juke looks small at first glance, but it has a pretty neat trick. You can take this out or lower it down and you get much more cargo capacity than you probably would think is possible in a little SUV like this. In fact, this is more practical than some SUVs the next size up when it comes to boot space. So if you have a growing family, maybe you've got 1 or 2 smaller kids, you can really make this work for you. Now, it's also got some really nice tricks in the back. You've got a couple of little shopping bag hooks, and if you pull this out, underneath the boot floor, you will find that there is a space saver spare wheel. So I think that makes this one of the most practical little SUVs that you can buy. Yeah, very impressive. The interior of the Nissan Juke, well, it looked and felt modern when it came out, but the market has shifted so quickly in the small SUV space with arrivals like the Haval Jolion and the Chery Motor 5, both of which have much more high-tech looking and high-tech feeling cabins, at least at first glance. Now, I will say this, I think that those other cars have, well, a bit more glitz and glam to them, but they don't have anywhere near the same level of usability and family friendliness, and I guess driver friendliness when it comes to the controls in here. So let's talk about it. So you've got an 8-inch touchscreen media system. Yeah, that looks a little bit small by modern standards, but hey, you know what's great about it? It does have a volume control and a tuning knob, and also a menu knob, so you can jump around the menus without touching the screen if you don't want to, or maybe you're driving or something like that. Also, I love the fact that you've got climate control buttons down below and their own knobs as well. And you also get heating for both the front seats in this grade. And you also get this very easy to navigate 7-inch digital part of the driver's display. Yes, you've got traditional dials either side, but you also get controls on the steering wheel to easily interact with that screen. And what it all means is that you are getting a far simpler existence in this car than if you were to buy one of those other cars with a bigger screen that doesn't have the software or the hardware, buttons in particular, to make it easy to live with. So, might look old, but it's far more functional. Now, let's talk about functionality in other areas. You've got a pair of cup holders here, a small center console bin, bottle holders in the doors as well, and a little storage tray here. There's no wireless phone charging, and you have to plug in your phone to the USB port to connect to Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as well. So yeah, in that way, it is feeling a little bit out of date. And also these yellowy halogen lights on the inside, which, yeah, just don't live up to the same sort of technical look on the outside that this car has. What I do like though is that these seats are very comfortable. They're not just squishy, but they also have good support to them. I've spent a few hours in this car so far, and I've found that it's a really comfortable place to sit, at least in the front. Let's check out the back. So the backseat experience. Not fantastic in terms of space, but it is a very little car, remember. This seat is set for my driving position. I'm 182 centimeters or 6 foot. Look, my legs are up against it, basically. At least I've got lots of foot room and really good headroom as well. So it does seem to be a bit of an odd shape, but if you have youngsters, like kids in child seats, as I do, you will be happy to know that there are ISOFIX points in the window seats and 3 top tether points as well. And you can easily fit a forward-facing child seat with someone in front with room to spare. We did it during our time with this car. My partner had heaps of legroom in the front, while my daughter could just touch the back of the seat. So yeah, I've also done it with a rearward facing capsule in the past, and look, it works provided that the person in front is okay to sit a little bit closer to the dashboard. You can make that work. So this could be a really good urban runaround car, or maybe just a second car if you are looking for this size of SUV, something that's very livable and pretty well accommodating in the back seat. Although I have an issue here because there are no directional air vents in the back, and it has a dark headliner, so it does feel quite hot in here, especially on hot days in the back. Our daughter was quite warm in the back of this car, and we had to try and get as much airflow from the front as possible. Obviously you can wind down the windows if you want, but it's not very good if they're sleeping or something like that, because it wakes them up. So yeah, keep that in mind. You've also got a USB port here, a little storage thing there as well, a couple of map pockets, and no flip down armrest or cup holders in the back, but you do get bottle holders in the doors. So look, It's kind of a mixed bag, but it's surprisingly spacious for a car of this size. Under the bonnet of the Nissan Juke, you will find a lot of Renault labels. That's because this is a byproduct of the alliance between Renault and Nissan. It's a 1 litre 3-cylinder turbo petrol engine. You'll see the outputs on your screen now. And just note that it comes as front-wheel drive only, and it has a 7-speed dual clutch automatic transmission. Now, this transmission is not amazing, but there are some ways to make it better, and I'll show you those tips inside the car. Let's go for a drive. Before we get started, there are some things that you will want to do before you drive your Nissan Juke. First one, make sure that the auto hold button is on. That basically stops it from rolling back when you shift into gear, or if you're at a stop, for instance. Now, that will be an issue for you, because if you don't have that auto hold button activated, this car will roll forward or roll backwards on hills when you're in a forward gear. It's really quite unsafe feeling at times. So I would say, make sure that A, you put the auto hold on, and B, just hover over the brake just in case. Look, it's not an excuse. It isn't fantastic, but it does help you get around it. Also helping you get around it is putting the car into sport mode from a standstill. So every time you drive the car, you'll need to hit that button if you want it to be its best form. And trust me, it makes it a far better car. It makes it less doughy in terms of throttle response and that sort of stuff. So let's go for a drive now. See, rolling back just like that. Now if I hold my foot on the brake, it holds it. So when you deactivate the park brake, make sure your foot is on the brake. All right, let's go. So by putting it into sport mode, essentially what you're doing is getting more out of this engine. It's not the most perky engine when it's not in sport mode, and it's even worse if you leave it in the eco mode. It makes it so doughy that it's really hard to live with in terms of the drive experience. But in sport mode, look, it makes for a far more easy living car, and also it has quite a bit of push when you do put it into that sport mode. Gets along quickly. And not only does it make the engine response a bit better, it smartens up the gear shifts too. So it will be just a little bit more tight and thoughtful in terms of the way that it behaves itself. But yeah, gets along well, this little car. For a 1 litre engine, I reckon it does a pretty good job. You've got paddle shifters as well if you do want to take matters into your own hands. I'm just going to put it back to normal mode and just see what it feels like. Yeah, it's like you have to really put your foot down a fair bit further on the throttle to get as much out of the car. This car also features engine start-stop technology, so that's where it'll turn the engine off if you come up to an intersection, and well, it's aimed to save fuel, but I turn it off because in combination with this turbo engine and dual clutch, it really is quite cumbersome at lower speeds to deal with. What I also like about it is that it is, well, pretty intact with the road surface. Now, for some people, a really firm or rigid feeling ride is going to be something they're not going to love, but I reckon that it does feel a little bit sportier as a result of that. I also like that it's got a flat bottom steering wheel. For some reason that just makes it feel a bit more racy, and yeah, I reckon that it does have pretty good steering as well. Look, it's not necessarily going to be setting any new benchmarks for steering enjoyment or anything like that, but it's easy to turn the wheel, change direction quickly, and it really does have a nice level of, well, simplicity to the way that it drives, because it's not trying to do anything too crazy in terms of the way it drives. It just drives how a little car should. Now in terms of refinement, yep, that 1 litre 3-cylinder engine is a bit raucous. It gets pretty noisy at times. And look, the car also suffers a fair bit from road noise intrusion on coarse chip surfaces at high speeds. Lower speeds, it's not too bad, but you do sort of feel a lot of the surface through the steering wheel and through the seats, even through the pedals as well. So yeah, it's not a luxury SUV, so don't approach it thinking that it is. Rightio, let's talk about efficiency. Well, the official combined cycle fuel consumption figure is pretty low. You'll see it on your screen now. That's for all grades of the Nissan Juke lineup. And if you can achieve that, you'll be doing well. Now, I haven't seen quite that low in my week of testing this car. On your screen, you'll see my average across a few hundred kilometers of driving. And look, that included a fair bit of highway stuff, a little bit of urban running around, drop-offs to daycare, that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think that it's pretty frugal, but not necessarily like hybrid-like in terms of its fuel efficiency. The Nissan Juke has the maximum 5-star ANCAP safety rating from 2019, so that rating's a little bit old now, but it does come comprehensively equipped when it comes to standard safety technology, including autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection. There's a lane keeping assist system, and you also get blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert on all grades. The lower grade versions come with a standard cruise control system. Higher spec models come with adaptive cruise control, and when it comes to reversing, you've got a reversing camera on all grades and rear parking sensors. But if you step up to the STL, which is this one here, you get a surround view camera, and you'll also add front parking sensors to the mix as well as you move up through the range. Now, it does seem like a pretty good safety pack, and you get 6 airbags fitted to this car, dual front side, and full length curtain coverage. Nissan Australia offers a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty on its models, and you also get 5 years of roadside assist included when you buy a brand new Nissan. Now, when it comes to servicing, the intervals are every 12 months or 20,000 kilometres. So if you do a lot of long distance driving, this car seems to make more sense than if you are an urban dweller, which is a bit weird for a little tiny car like this. But also keep in mind that the servicing costs are quite high because you're covering more kilometres. The average cost over the first 6 years or 120,000 Ks is $650 per visit. So it does seem pretty expensive. You can save just a little bit of money if you decide to prepay your servicing. You can choose a 3, 4 or 5 year package, prices on your screen now. And that does make a little bit of sense, but hey, it's still not the most affordable little car to own, even though it does seem to stack up if you are going to be doing really long distance driving a lot of the time and you do a lot of Ks. This is one of the most underrated little SUVs on the market. I would choose it over one of those cheap Chinese models in a heartbeat, even if it does have a pretty annoying dual clutch automatic and quite expensive service pricing, but it'd be far more livable and far more lovable than either of those other models, and I reckon than a bunch of the other small SUVs on the market too. Tell me what you think in the comments section. Would you choose a Nissan Juke? If not, why not? And if you own one, what do you think about it? I'd love to hear from you. And if you haven't already, please do like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.